Hey guys, today we're in the book of 2 Kings chapter 25, the last chapter of the book of Kings. And so as we've been watching Judah fall, today is the end. And in the 9th year of his reign, in the 10th month, on the 10th day of his month, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came with his army against Jerusalem and laid siege to it. And they laid siege works all around it, or a wall all around it. Here's this interesting. Here, the writer of Kings tells us he dates the Bible by the Babylonian record. And so that's what we get in the 9th year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar in the 10th month on the 10th day. This is extra biblical history, right? So we get the date of the Bible from something else. And that's the first time it happens in the book of Kings. It happens often in the book of Chronicles, but this is the first time it happens in the book of Kings. And so here we see exactly when this happens and what does he do? He's coming to fully come against it, right? So remember, 605, it started. 601 to 598, all of the world is coming against it. 597, they take basically everybody away from Judah. And now in 586 BC, 586 BC, 11 years after taking everyone away, here we are. We have the end of Judah. They come, and it says in the ESV, they lay siege works. Your translation might say a wall. All that means is that Babylonian comes and they completely encompass Jerusalem. Completely encompass it. No trade in, no trade out, no food in, no food out, no water in, no water out, no wine in, no water out. And basically, you just wait for them to all die or to give up. There's no sense of wasting soldiers and wasting energy and going against a wall. Just wait them out. And so that's what a siege work is. Very common back in Middle Eastern time where all cities had wall. You just wrap them up and wait for them to starve or dehydrate or give up. Anyway, doesn't matter. They're going to win. And so that's what they do. And so basically the famine and severe became so bad, they couldn't fight, they couldn't do anything. And so we see in verse 4, they breach the city, they made a wall, they go in through the gate, they take it over, they slaughter all the king's family, they take out the eyes of Zedekiah, and they take him away in chains to Babylon. And on the 5th month of the 7th day of the month, that was the 19th year of King Nebuchadnezzar, once again, dating the Bible by Babylonian history, we see that the bodyguard comes, the chief of Nebuchadnezzar comes, and he burns down the temple. He burns the temple of the Lord, Yahweh's temple, down along with the king's house, and basically destroy everything, including the walls of Jerusalem. Basically, when you destroy the walls of a city, that means it's no longer a city. There's no way for protection. It's not a city anymore. So Jewish history, not biblical history, Jewish history tells us that there was not two stones stacked on top of each other. And so basically they flattened out Jerusalem, nothing left. They burn it, kick over everything. And everybody that was left, all of the poor, they carry them off into exile, except for a few that they left to be workers in fields. And so basically destroy Jerusalem. So 586, that's the end of Judah and Jerusalem. So there is nothing left. What's amazing to think about this is if you were to go back and calculate biblical history, when Joshua came over the Jordan and was the first time that Israel took over the promised land that God promised Abraham all the way back in Genesis chapter 12, okay? But when Joshua and Israel crosses the Jordan, right, at Gilgal, it's been 860 years. 860 years Israel has been in the promised land, and now it's done. They're all taken away. They're spread across the world. This is the first time in 860 years that Israel has not kept the promised land. And so now it is now Babylonian land. So 586, that's important. 722 is when Assyria took over Israel. 586 is when Babylon takes over Judah. Well, all of this happens. Judah's not left, and everybody is now taken to Babylon. But King Nebuchadnezzar appoints a governor. That's what my translation says, a governor, and basically it's a mediary, somebody between the king and somebody between the Jews, right? There's a language barrier, there's a cultural barrier, religion barrier, so he needs somebody to appoint in the middle, right? And a lot of times we think that's Daniel, and it's not Daniel. Though Daniel was in the house, and though Daniel speaks for the Lord, there was somebody in between Nebuchadnezzar and the Jews that were in Babylon, and his name is Gedaliah. And so Gedaliah is appointed governor. He tells them to live in the land, serve the king of Babylon, and it shall be well with you, which is really all they could do. It's not bad advice, but some of the Jews thought it was bad advice. They considered him a traitor because he's kind of in the middle role, right? He is in between the king, in between them. He has to make sure that Nebuchadnezzar wouldn't just eradicate all of the Jews, right? So it is a middle line, but some of the Jews considered him a traitor, and they assassinated him. They put him to death, during this time, what happens, some of the Jews run away, they escape. In verse 26, it says they went down to Egypt, for they were afraid of the Chaldeans, of the Babylonians. So they go down to Egypt. Now, what's interesting, they don't know this, but we know this because of Bible history and world history. That was not a good move. They go down to Egypt because they thought they could be hidden there, and Egypt would treat them well, but Egypt does not. Egypt becomes a very much harder oppressor than Babylon does of the Jews of Israel. And they all go to a place called Elephatine and Aswan. Just last year, Laura and I, we were there. We were on Elephatine Island. We were in Aswan. We seen Jewish buildings and Jewish artifacts that were there in this first cataract of the Nile River. And a lot of people believe, and I'm one of those, that Jeremiah, this is where he was at. He was there on Elephatine Island in Aswan in the first cataract of the Nile. And so there's a lot of artifacts there, a lot of Jewish Israel things there. There's menorah, there's not menorahs. There's lamps and things that were just very Israel kind of base, just kind of things that they did. We find huge groups of Jews that went there, but Pharaoh did not treat them well, and it would have been better for them to stay in Babylon. It would have been better for them to go through the judgment that God wanted to them in Babylon, but they were trying to escape God's judgment and went to a worse judgment. And so maybe one day we can go to Egypt together. It's pretty cool place. Learn all kinds of stuff. And not only that, but we see in Elephantine, in Aswan writing, so in Egyptian writing, it talks about all these Jews who head down there at this exact time. But the last chapter of 2 Kings leaves us with a little glimmer, a little hope, a little grace, a little mercy. Jehoiakim, right, which was not the last king of Judah, it was the second to last king, but for Israel, it was the last one that they chose, right? Remember, Zedekiah was a king that Nebuchadnezzar picked. right? So here we see in the very last verses what happens, that Nebuchadnezzar frees Jehoiakim and speaks kindly to him, and he gives him a seat above the seats of other kings, and he dines regularly with the king. Now, there's a lot of kind of folklore that goes into why this is, and we'll kind of get into that in Chronicles. But just notice what happens. It ends with just a verse of 2 of a glimmer of hope, right? That even though the king of Babylon was bad and destroyed everything, he releases him. He talks good to him. He gives him a seat, as though there's a glimmer, almost this kind of messianic revival awakening, that though Israel is destroyed, though Judah is destroyed, wait, there's a glimmer of hope. There could be a chance, and we'll have to see about what that chance looks like. Hope that makes sense. I know the book of Kings is very hard. There's a lot of kings, a lot of names, a lot of dates. Chronicle will be the same. It will fill in a lot of places. So keep your charts handy. You're going to need them in the next couple months of reading through the books of Chronicles. But I am looking forward to it. I'm so glad that you're reading through these hard parts of the Bible to bring a better understanding of the history of Israel. When you fully understand the history of Israel, you will understand why the coming of the Messiah was so important. So I hope this makes sense, and we will see you tomorrow in the book of First Chronicles. God bless.